I woke up from surgery to 17 missed calls. Not from my son checking if I'd survived. Not from family asking about my recovery. Just 17 increasingly frantic voicemails, all saying the same thing. Mom, call me back. Now. It's about the car. The car. My 1987 Honda Accord with 340,000 miles, rust eating through the wheel wells, and a passenger door that only opened from the inside. The car my son Derek had been begging me to get rid of for 3 years. It's an eyesore, Mom, he'd said at Thanksgiving. It's embarrassing. What will the neighbors think when they see that piece of junk in front of our house? Our house. Not my house where I'd raised him alone after his father left. Our house. The one Derek moved into 6 months ago after his third business failure. The one where he paid no rent and contributed nothing but opinions about my life choices. I'd gone into surgery at 6 a.m. Gallbladder removal, routine. My neighbor Patricia had driven me to the hospital because Derek said he had a crucial meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. The surgery was supposed to take 2 hours. I'd be home by noon. But there were complications. What should have been routine became emergency. 2 hours became 7. And sometime during those 7 hours, while I was unconscious on an operating table, while doctors were making decisions about whether to call my next of kin, while Patricia sat in the waiting room praying I'd survive, my son sold my car. I didn't know any of this yet. I was still in recovery, groggy from anesthesia, when the nurse handed me my phone. "Your son's been calling," she said. "Sounds urgent." I called him back. He answered on the first ring. "Mom, finally. Okay, don't freak out, but I sold the Honda." My brain was still foggy from drugs. "What?" "The car, your car. I sold it. Got $800 for it, way more than it's worth, honestly. The guy's already picked it up. I deposited the money in your account." He said it like he was waiting for praise, like he'd done me a favor. "You sold my car while I was in surgery. You were supposed to be out by noon. I thought you'd be home before the guy even came to look at it." "How was I supposed to know you'd have complications?" His voice had that defensive edge I'd heard since he was 12. Everything was always someone else's fault. "Derek, that car. Mom, it's a piece of junk. Honestly, I did you a favor. Now you can get something decent. Something that doesn't make me embarrassed to be seen with you." I closed my eyes. The nurse was watching with obvious concern. I tried to breathe through the panic rising in my chest. "Where's the stuff from inside the car?" "What stuff?" "From the glove compartment. The center console. Where is it?" "Oh, I threw most of it away. Old napkins and registration papers and junk. Nothing important." He paused. "Why? Was there something?" I hung up. The nurse, her name tag said, Michelle, leaned closer. "Are you okay? Do you need me to call someone?" I couldn't answer. Couldn't speak. Because in that glove compartment, in the car my son had just sold for $800 and cleaned out like it was garbage, were 3 things he'd never known existed. 3 things I'd kept hidden for 32 years. 3 things that were about to blow up his entire understanding of his life, his father, and the mother he thought was too poor and pathetic to deserve his respect. Let me back up. Explain how we got here. Because this story doesn't start with a surgery or a sold car or 17 missed calls. It starts 32 years ago with a young woman, a choice, and a lie that seemed kinder than the truth. I was 23 when I got pregnant. Derek's father, Michael, was 25, charming, ambitious, and completely unprepared for fatherhood. "I can't do this," he said when I told him. "I'm not ready. I'm starting my business. I have plans. I can't be tied down by a kid." "So leave," I said. Calm. Clear. "Leave and never come back." "What? You want out? Fine. But if you walk away now, you stay away. Forever. No changing your mind. No popping back in when it's convenient. You're either all in or all out." He chose out. Left before I was showing. Sent 1 check for $5,000 with a note. "For the abortion or the baby, your choice." I kept the baby. Kept the check. And told everyone, including my son, that his father had died in a car accident before he was born. It seemed kinder. Better than "your father didn't want you." better than the truth that Michael had chosen his business plans over his child and never looked back. Except Michael didn't just start a business. He built an empire. By the time Derek was 5, Michael's company had gone public. By the time Derek was 10, Michael was on Forbes lists. By the time Derek was 15, Michael was a household name, tech innovator, philanthropist, the kind of success story that gets featured in documentaries. And I never told my son. Never said, by the way, your father isn't dead. He's a billionaire who chose stock options over you. I had 3 reasons. First, Michael had made his choice. He didn't deserve to be a father just because he'd gotten successful. Second, I didn't want Derek measuring his worth against a father who'd abandoned him. Didn't want him growing up thinking, if I'd been better, smarter, more valuable, maybe Dad would have stayed. Third, and this was the big one, I wanted to see who Derek would become without the temptation of easy money, without the option of calling Daddy for a bailout, without using his father's name to open doors. I wanted him to build his own life, make his own choices, become his own person. It didn't work out that way. Derek spent 32 years becoming exactly like the father he'd never met, entitled, dismissive, measuring people by their net worth instead of their character. And I'd watched it happen, helpless. Because how do you tell your adult son that the dead father he'd idolized was actually alive, wildly successful, and had never once asked about him? You don't. You keep the secret. You keep the documents hidden in your glove compartment. Documents like the paternity test I'd had done when Derek was 2, just in case Michael ever tried to claim he wasn't the father. Documents like the $5,000 check Michael had sent, never cashed, with his handwritten note about the abortion or the baby. Documents like the letter Michael's lawyer had sent 5 years ago, after Michael's only legitimate child died in a skiing accident, asking if I'd be willing to do a DNA test to confirm Derek's paternity for estate planning purposes. I'd ignored that letter, thrown it away, except I hadn't. I'd kept it in the glove compartment with the other things I couldn't throw away but couldn't look at either. And 3 months ago, a second letter arrived. Not from a lawyer, from Michael himself. Handwritten, 7 pages, an apology, an explanation, and an offer. I'm dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 6 months, maybe less. I spent 32 years building a fortune and ignoring the only thing that mattered, the son I abandoned. I can't undo that. But I can give him what I should have given him all along, a choice. Contact me, or don't. But know that he's in my will. Everything I built, I'm leaving to him. Not because I deserve to be his father. Because he deserves to know the truth. The letter included Michael's private number, his address, medical records proving the cancer was real, and a copy of his updated will, leaving his entire estate, estimated at $4.7 billion, to my son Derek Chen, the child I failed but never forgot. I'd kept that letter in the glove compartment too, reading it sometimes, trying to decide what to do, whether to tell Derek, whether to give Michael the chance to meet his son before he died. And now my son, who'd spent 6 months living in my house rent-free while telling me I was an embarrassment, who'd sold my car for $800 while I was in surgery, who'd thrown away the contents of my glove compartment like it was trash, had just destroyed the only proof that he was about to inherit $4.7 billion. Or had he? Because 3 hours after that phone call, while I was still in recovery, Patricia appeared in my hospital room with a garbage bag. "The buyer called," she said, her voice shaking. "The man who bought your car. He found something in the glove compartment, something your son missed." And she pulled out an envelope, sealed, marked with Michael's handwriting. "For Derek, open only when you're ready to know the truth." My son had sold my car, thrown away his inheritance, and missed the one envelope that would change everything. But the real question, the one I'd be asking myself for the next 72 hours, was whether he deserved to know what he'd almost lost, or whether some truths come too late to matter. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days, not because of the surgery, though the complications meant I needed monitoring. I stayed because going home meant facing Derek, meant deciding what to do with the envelope Patricia had rescued, meant choosing between protecting my son and telling him a truth that would destroy everything he thought he knew. Derek visited once. 45 minutes on day 2, squeezed between a networking lunch and a critical meeting he couldn't miss. "You look better," he said, standing at the foot of my hospital bed like he was visiting a stranger. Not sitting, not close, just standing there, already half out the door. "Thanks for coming," I said. "Yeah, well, I figured I should check in. Make sure you're not, dying or anything." He laughed. Uncomfortable. The kind of laugh that fills space without meaning anything. "The surgery went fine, eventually." "Good, that's good." He was scrolling his phone, not even pretending to pay full attention. "So, listen, I've been thinking about your living situation. My living situation, not our living situation, not the house where I'd raised him alone, where he'd been living rent-free for 6 months. What about it? You're getting older, Mom. 55. That's basically retirement age. And with health issues now. I had my gallbladder removed, Derek. I'm not dying. Still, it's a wake-up call, right? Time to think about downsizing. There are these great senior communities." "I'm not moving to a senior community," he sighed. The same exasperated sigh he'd been using since he was 14 whenever I didn't immediately agree with his plans. "Mom, be realistic. That house is too big for one person. The maintenance alone is killing you. You should sell it, take the money, get yourself into something manageable, something with medical staff on site, just in case." "And where would you live?" He blinked, like the question hadn't occurred to him. "I'd figure something out. Get my own place, finally. I'm 32. I should have my own space anyway." With what money, I wanted to ask, but didn't. Because we'd had this conversation a dozen times, and it always ended the same way, with Derek explaining that his current business venture was this close to taking off, that investors were interested, that he just needed a little more time. "Speaking of money," I said carefully, "the car, you said you got $800 for it?" "Yeah, honestly, I think the guy felt sorry for me. That car was a death trap, Mom. You should be thanking me. I probably saved your life by getting you out of it." He said it like he believed it, like selling my car without permission while I was in surgery was an act of love. "Did you keep anything from inside?" "What do you mean?" "From the glove compartment, the center console, my things." He shrugged. "There was nothing important. Old registration papers, napkins, some random envelopes. I threw it all out." "Why? Was there something?" He stopped, finally looked at me directly. "Mom, what was in the car?" I could have told him then. Could have said, "Everything. Your entire life was in that car and you threw it away like garbage." Instead, I said, "Nothing. I just wondered." He relaxed. "Okay, good. Because for a second I thought..." He laughed again. That same uncomfortable filling space laugh. "Anyway, I should go. That meeting. But I'll check in tomorrow, okay?" He didn't check in tomorrow, or the day after. When the hospital discharged me, it was Patricia who picked me up, not my son. "He texted," she said as she helped me into her car. "Said something came up, an opportunity he couldn't miss." An opportunity, always an opportunity, never his mother recovering from emergency surgery. "Patricia," I said as we pulled out of the parking lot, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "The man who bought my car, the one who found the envelope, did he say anything else about what was inside the glove compartment?" She was quiet for a moment, hands tight on the steering wheel. "He said there were 3 envelopes. Derek had thrown 2 of them in the trash. The buyer saw them when he was cleaning out the car. Crumpled up, coffee-stained. He almost threw away the 3rd one too, but something made him open it." She glanced at me. "He said it was addressed to Derek, sealed. He thought it might be important. 3 envelopes, 2 destroyed. 1 saved by a stranger's curiosity and a son's carelessness." "Did he read it?" I asked quietly. He said no. Said it wasn't his business. But he seemed shaken. Like whatever he'd seen on the outside of that envelope, your handwriting, Derek's name, something, made him realize it mattered. She paused. "He left his number. Said if you wanted to thank him, or if Derek wanted to know what happened, he'd be happy to explain." Derek wouldn't want to know. Derek had already decided everything in that car was worthless. Just like he'd decided I was worthless, an embarrassment, a burden, someone to be managed and eventually moved into senior housing so he could have the house to himself. "What are you going to do?" Patricia asked as we pulled into my driveway. Derek's girlfriend's BMW was parked in my spot. Because of course it was. "I don't know," I admitted. Inside, Derek was on the couch, laptop open, phone pressed to his ear, talking about market disruption and scalable solutions and other buzzwords that sounded impressive but meant nothing. He waved when I walked in, didn't get up, didn't end his call, just waved like I was a neighbor passing by, not his mother coming home from the hospital. I went to my bedroom and closed the door, sat on the bed with the envelope Patricia had given me. The one envelope Derek hadn't destroyed. The one a stranger had saved because he thought it might matter. I'd sealed this envelope 6 months ago after the second letter from Michael arrived. After I'd read his confession, his diagnosis, his desperate attempt to meet his son before he died. I'd written Derek's name on the outside, put inside everything he'd need to know. The paternity test, the check from Michael with the note about abortion or the baby, the letter from Michael's lawyer about estate planning, and Michael's own 7-page confession. Everything except the one detail I hadn't been able to write down. The one piece of information that changed everything. I'd been waiting for the right time to tell Derek. Waiting for him to mature enough, grow enough, become enough of a man to handle the truth. But the right time never came. Because Derek never grew up, never matured, never became anything except a bigger version of his 18-year-old self, entitled, dismissive, convinced the world owed him success without effort. And now the decision had been made for me. Because Derek had sold my car, thrown away 2 of the 3 envelopes, and inadvertently forced my hand. The envelope in my hands felt heavier than it should. Paper and ink shouldn't weigh this much. But truth always weighs more than lies. I could give it to him, tell him everything, hand him the envelope and watch his world implode as he learned. His father wasn't dead. His father was Michael Chen, billionaire, tech innovator, the kind of success story Derek had spent his whole life trying to become. His father had abandoned him deliberately, chosen business over fatherhood and never looked back. And his father was dying. Right now. 3 months left. Maybe less. Or I could keep the secret. Let Derek go on believing his father was dead. Let him keep struggling, failing, trying to build something from nothing like I'd watched him do for 10 years. Except now there was a complication. A detail I hadn't known 6 months ago when I'd sealed this envelope. A piece of information that changed everything. Michael had updated his will 3 weeks ago. I knew because his lawyer had sent me a copy. Certified mail, signature required, impossible to ignore. And according to that will, Derek was about to inherit everything. Every dollar. Every asset. The entire $4.7 billion empire. But only if he claimed it within 90 days of Michael's death. Only if he knew the truth. Only if I told him. I heard Derek's voice from the living room, still on his call, talking about his next venture and how it was going to change everything. The same promises he'd been making for a decade. The same dreams that never materialized into anything except debt and disappointment. What would $4.7 billion do to a man like that? To someone who'd already proven he'd sell his mother's car without asking, throw away her possessions without checking, move her into senior housing without considering her feelings? Would money make him better? Or just make him a bigger version of what he already was? And did he deserve the chance to find out? Or had he already proven, by throwing away those 2 envelopes, by treating me like an embarrassment, by choosing opportunities over his mother in the hospital, that some people don't deserve the truth? Even when the truth is worth $4.7 billion, Derek didn't sleep that night. I heard him pacing in his room until 4 a.m. Heard him on the phone, calling friends, calling his ex-girlfriend, calling anyone who'd answer at that hour to say, "My life just changed. Everything I thought I knew was a lie." At 6 a.m., he knocked on my door. "I'm going to San Francisco, to the lawyer's office, today. I need to see those videos. I need to hear it from him. No, good morning. No, how are you feeling? Just action." Derek, you should think about this. I've had all night to think. 32 years, actually. I'm done thinking. He left at 7 a.m., drove 5 hours to Jonathan Waterhouse's office without telling me when he'd be back. He returned at 11 p.m., eyes red, face hollow, older. He recorded 23 videos, Derek said, standing in my kitchen doorway. 23 apologies, 23 explanations, 23 reasons why he was a coward. Derek. He looked like me, Mom. Same eyes, same gestures. I watched a stranger who had my face tell me he was sorry for 32 years of absence. Derek's voice cracked. And you know what the worst part was? I understood him. Every excuse he made, I've made the same ones. Every justification, I've used them. I am him. You're not. I sold your car while you were in surgery. He abandoned his son before birth. What's the difference? The lawyer called the next morning while Derek was still asleep on my couch. Ms. Torres, I need to inform you of something. Derek requested full financial disclosure yesterday. He wanted to see everything, every account, every asset, every zero in that inheritance. Jonathan paused. He spent 4 hours going through documents. Didn't say a word, just calculated. And then he asked me one question. If I don't claim this, where does it go? I told him about the foundation, the charitable causes Michael had selected. He nodded and left. I don't know if that's good or bad. Derek woke up at noon, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and pulled out a notebook. I made a list, he said, sliding it across to me. The page was divided into 2 columns. Reasons to claim it, pay off debt, $47K, start business properly, help mom retire, never worry about money again. Prove dad was wrong about me. Reasons not to, I'll become him money I didn't earn. Mom will never trust me again. I'll waste it like everything else. Which list is longer? I asked. The wrong one. Over the next week, Derek did something I'd never seen him do. He got a job. Not a networking opportunity. Not a consulting gig. An actual job. Stocking shelves at Target. Overnight shift, $16.50 an hour. What are you doing? I asked when he came home at 7 a.m. in a red polo shirt, smelling like cardboard and exhaustion. Testing something. Testing what? Whether I can show up, whether I can do something I'm not too good for, whether I'm capable of earning anything. He worked there for 3 weeks, came home every morning, slept 4 hours, then spent afternoons at the library reading Michael's business biography, watching interviews, studying the man he'd never met. Why are you torturing yourself? I asked on day 18. I'm not torturing myself. I'm learning. He made every mistake I'm about to make. Failed 3 times before he succeeded. Burned relationships. Alienated people. I need to know if I'm destined to repeat it or if I can choose different. Day 22, Derek quit Target. Not because it was hard, because something happened that changed everything. A coworker, Miguel, 19, supporting his mother and 2 sisters, asked Derek for advice. You seem smart, man, like you know stuff. How do I start a business? How do I get out of this? Derek spent his lunch break sketching business plans on napkins, explaining incorporation, teaching what he'd learned from 10 years of failure. Miguel listened like Derek was handing him gold. That's when I knew, Derek told me that night. I have something valuable, not money, knowledge, experience. I've failed enough times to teach other people how not to. That's worth something. Day 30, Jonathan called again. We're halfway through the window, 60 days left. I need to know Derek's intentions. The board is asking questions. He's figuring it out. Ms. Torres, with respect, this isn't a decision you figure out. It's a decision you make. That night, Derek came to me with a different notebook. This one had numbers, projections, plans. I want to accept the inheritance, he said. My stomach dropped. But, he continued, I don't want to keep it. Not in the way Dad did. I want to do something he never did, use it to show up. He opened the notebook. The Derek Torres Plan, terrible working title. Accept full inheritance, $4. 7B salary for me, $100K year, modest, livable, not billionaire. Mom's trust, 50 millimeters, non-negotiable. Nursing home endowment, $100, legacy gift. Foundation, 4.5 B+, everything else. Foundation, purpose. Fund small businesses for people like Miguel, support single parents, like Mom was. No applications, no gatekeeping, just showing up. You've thought about this, I said quietly. For 30 days straight. I can't undo what Dad did, can't undo what I did, but I can choose what happens next. He looked at me. Is this okay? Or am I still missing the point? I should have felt relief, pride, validation that my son had finally learned the lesson. Instead, I felt fear, because giving away billions sounds noble in a notebook at midnight, but actually doing it, signing papers, walking away from wealth, choosing presence over power, that's where people fail. And Derek had 58 days to prove whether his notebook dreams were real, or just another version of the promises he'd been making for 10 years. Jonathan Waterhouse requested an in-person meeting on day 37, not a phone call, not an email. I need to see both of you, tomorrow. This is urgent. Derek and I drove to San Francisco together, silent. He'd been different since making his decision, calmer, more focused, but also distant. Like he was preparing for something I couldn't see. Jonathan's office was glass and steel and uncomfortable modern furniture that cost more than my car. Thank you for coming. He gestured to chairs. I'll be direct. The board of Michael's foundation is threatening legal action. Legal action for what? Derek asked. They believe you're intentionally delaying to negotiate a better deal. They want clarity. Now. Either claim the inheritance and accept the terms, or decline so they can proceed with alternative distribution. I already told you my plan. Derek, I explained your plan to them. They don't believe it. A 32-year-old failed entrepreneur who wants to give away $4.5 billion. Jonathan shook his head. They think you'll change your mind the moment the money hits your account. They want legally binding commitments before transfer. Fine. Draw up the documents. It's not that simple. Jonathan pulled out a thick folder. If you commit to this structure, there's no reversing it. The foundation becomes irrevocable. The trusts become locked. You'll have $100,000 a year and no access to the principal. Ever. Even if you change your mind in 5 years. I understand. Do you? Jonathan leaned forward. Derek, I've handled hundreds of estates. I've watched people claim they'll be responsible, they'll be generous, they'll be different, and then the money arrives and they become exactly who the money allows them to be. Usually worse. You don't think I can do this. I think you mean it right now. I think 50 days from now, when it's real, you might feel different. Derek stood up. Then I'll sign today, right now, before I can change my mind. Jonathan blinked. Today? You said the board wants clarity. Give them clarity. Draw up irrevocable documents. I'll sign them before I leave this office. Derek, I started. Mom, if I wait, I'll talk myself out of it. I'll find reasons to keep more, to protect myself, to do what Dad did, choose safety over purpose. He looked at Jonathan. How long to draft the documents? 6 hours, minimum. This requires precision. Then I'll wait. We waited in a conference room with bad coffee and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Derek didn't pace, didn't check his phone, just sat, staring at the skyline. Are you sure about this? I finally asked. No, but I'm more sure about this than I've been about anything in my life. Derek, this is $4.7 billion. You can change your mind. You can keep more. No one would blame you. You would. What? You'd blame me, not out loud, but you'd know I failed the test, that I'd learned nothing, that I was still the guy who sold your car and threw away your letters and treated you like you were worthless. His voice was steady. I can live with being poor. I can't live with staying that person. At 6 p.m., Jonathan returned with documents. 73 pages. Legal language I barely understood. He walked Derek through every section, every clause, every place where Derek was signing away rights to billions. Last chance, Jonathan said, pen hovering. Once you sign, it's permanent. Derek signed 18 pages without hesitation. Page 19, His hand trembled. It was the section transferring $4.5 billion to an irrevocable charitable trust. The number written out, $4,500,000,000. Derek? I said softly. He closed his eyes, took a breath. Signed. When it was done, Jonathan collected the documents like they were radioactive. Congratulations. You're now legally obligated to give away the 10th largest inheritance in California history. He didn't sound celebratory. He sounded concerned. How do you feel? Derek was quiet for a long moment. Lighter. We drove home in silence. Halfway there, Derek pulled over at a rest stop. I need to tell you something, he said. Okay. When I was watching Dad's videos, there was one he recorded 2 days before he died. He could barely talk. Cancer had spread to his throat, but he insisted on making one more. Derek's hands gripped the steering wheel. He said, Derek, if you're watching this, you're probably angry. At me, at your mother for hiding the truth, at the world for making you choose between money and meaning. What else did he say? He said, I spent 32 years choosing money. I have everything and it's worth nothing. You have the chance I never had, to choose different. And if you do, you'll have something I never found. You'll have yourself. Derek turned to look at me. That's why I signed today, because I finally understand what he meant. The money was a test to see if I'd learned anything from his failure. And have you? I asked gently. Ask me in 20 years. When I'm not a billionaire, and Miguel opens his third business and your nursing home has 0 wait lists and I'm still showing up at your house for Sunday dinner. We pulled back onto the highway. And for the first time in 32 years, I felt like I was driving beside a man instead of a boy playing at being one 23 days later. The money transferred. Derek didn't buy a house, didn't buy a car, didn't celebrate. He opened a business checking account with $100,000, rented a 1-bedroom apartment near mine, and spent his first morning as the 10th largest charitable donor in California history, making breakfast for his mother who'd just come home from a double shift at the nursing home. And when I asked him how it felt to give away $4.5 billion, he said something I'll never forget. Like I finally stopped being my father's mistake and started being my mother's son. The nursing home doesn't look like a nursing home anymore. The Margaret Torres Center, I still hate that they named it after me while I'm alive, has a garden now. A real one, not just decorative plants. Residents grow vegetables, paint outside, have space to exist instead of just wait to die. Mrs. Peterson turned 93 last month. She made me a card. It said, "Thank you for having a son who listens." Derek comes by every Sunday, not to visit me, though he does, to volunteer. He runs a business workshop for residents' families, teaches them what he learned from failure, helps them avoid his mistakes. Last Sunday, Miguel came, 21 now. Just opened his second location, a coffee shop that employs formerly incarcerated workers. Your son saved my life, he told me. I was gonna be at Target forever. He showed me another way. Derek's foundation has funded 847 small businesses in 2 years. No applications, no credit checks. Just people with ideas meeting someone willing to show up. He still makes $100,000 a year. Still lives in a 1-bedroom, still drives a used Honda. Ironic, given the one he sold his ex-girlfriend called last month. Heard about the inheritance, wanted to reconnect. He blocked her number. The media tried to make him a hero. Forbes wanted to profile him. Billionaire heir gives it all away. He declined every interview. I didn't give it away, he told me when I asked why. I invested it in the only thing Dad never figured out. Showing up for people who can't pay you back. Last week, Jonathan Waterhouse sent a letter. Michael's foundation board, the one that threatened legal action, voted to name Derek their youngest board member. They wanted his perspective on radical generosity. Derek accepted, but only if they'd let him bring Miguel as co-advisor. Someone needs to remind them, he said, that the people they're helping aren't statistics. They're Miguel's. They're my mom working double shifts. They're the version of me that almost wasted everything because no one had shown me what actually matters. Yesterday, I got a letter from Robert Chen. The stranger who bought my car for $800 and saved the envelope Derek almost destroyed. Dear Ms. Torres, I read about your son in the newspaper, about what he did with his inheritance. I wanted you to know. I kept one of those envelopes I rescued from your car. The one from Michael's lawyer about estate planning. I wasn't sure if you'd want it, but I couldn't throw it away. I'm enclosing it now. Not because you need it, your son clearly doesn't, but because sometimes we need reminders of how close we came to losing what mattered. Your son almost threw away a fortune, but what he almost threw away wasn't the money. It was the chance to become someone worth knowing. He found it. Keep the letter as proof. With respect, Robert Chennai opened the envelope. It was the estate planning letter, coffee-stained, crumpled, rescued from trash by a stranger who saw value Derek had been too entitled to notice. I keep it in my safe now. Next to the notebook where Derek wrote his terrible titled plan. Next to the first check Miguel ever wrote to repay his startup loan, $47, everything he had. Not because they're worth money, because they're proof that glove compartments hold more than documents. They hold tests. We don't know we're taking tests about whether we see value before we destroy it, about whether we become our father's mistakes or our mother's lessons, about whether $800 cars contain billion-dollar truths. Derek passed. Not because he's special, because a stranger cared enough to rescue what he'd thrown away, and because a mother loved him enough to let him choose who he'd become, even when choosing right meant walking away from $4.7 billion. Sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't money. It's the 30 days between learning the truth and deciding what to do with it. Derek used his 30 days to become someone his father never was, present. And that's worth more than every dollar Michael Chen ever made. Derek signed away $4.5 billion in 6 hours. No hesitation. No negotiation. No, let me think about it. And just 73 pages of legal documents that turned him from potential billionaire to $100K a year foundation director. Most people spend more time deciding what car to buy. If this story hit you, if you've ever watched someone almost destroy something valuable because they couldn't see what they had, or if you've been that person yourself, you're exactly where you need to be. This channel exists for one reason: to tell stories about the things people almost lose before they learn what they're worth. Every week, glove compartments that hold fortunes, parents who test without telling, sons and daughters who pass or fail based on 30-day windows they don't know exist. Subscribe right now if you want more stories about inheritance that isn't about money. It's about character, about the tests we're taking without knowing, about choosing who you become over what you own. Next week, a woman's mother left her siblings millions but left her a storage unit. She didn't open it for 3 years. When she finally did, what she found made her siblings' money look like pocket change. Comment below, have you ever thrown away something that turned out to be valuable? What happened when you realized? Your story might become our next video. Before you go, remember what Derek said when asked how it felt to give away billions. Like, I finally stopped being my father's mistake and started being my mother's son. Here's the question you need to ask yourself right now. Whose son are you being? Whose daughter? The parent who chose wealth over presence? Or the one who showed up when no one was watching? You're being tested. Right now. You just don't know it yet. Every time you choose your phone over your parent. Every time you're too busy for the people who made time for you. Every time you measure success in salary instead of Sundays. You're taking the test, and someone's keeping score. Derek almost failed. He sold his mother's car, threw away billion-dollar documents, treated presents like poverty. A stranger named Robert saved him, rescued an envelope from trash because something told him it mattered. Who's your Robert? Who's seeing value you're destroying? And are you listening? Derek had 30 days between learning the truth and choosing who he'd become. How many days do you have? And are you using them? Or wasting them selling cars you don't own while the people who love you are in surgery? Thanks for watching. Next week, another glove compartment, another truth, another person who almost threw away everything. Check yours before someone sells your car.